Welcome into another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, a local business looking for help getting aid to hurricane-ravaged Jamaica. Barrie business leaders are banding together to find solutions to the homeless crisis. Local municipalities, including Innisfil, maintain speed cameras do slow down traffic, despite what the Ford government says. We are in the throes of Carbon Monoxide Awareness Week. In addition to the usual safety tips, we have new regulations coming into effect you need to be aware of. A local golfer moves closer to a spot on the main tour, and the Barrie Colts have found a way to win consistently. We get the conversation started after this. Glass Doctor Barrie wanting to fix some pains in Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa wreaked havoc on the island. Owner Dave Hawthorne collecting equipment to help in the recovery effort. He spells things out for Barrie 360's Ian Maclennan.
Let me go back to the very beginning, if I could. So I have a friend, there's an acquaintance, actually, he worked for your station, Kid Andrew, a long time ago. I don't know if you remember the name or not. I know you've been there a while, but maybe not at Rock. But he's been in the music industry for a long time, and he's from Barrie, and he moved to Jamaica a couple of years ago. And he's got what they call a music mansion or whatever, and they have lots of bands go there, and they create music and all that, blah, blah, blah. Well, he lost most of that. So anyway, he was talking on Facebook, and then he said, we're in dire need of chainsaws and all that. And it turns out that he's facilitating between the government agencies, hotels down there. He's kind of the middleman. He's doing a wonderful job down there. And I said, what do you need us to do? What do you need us to do, Kit? And he's like, oh, we need chainsaws. Like, we're not just in relief, we're in rescue. I mean, there's people that are still trapped, and they're caught by trees and all. They just can't get to them. So they're in dire need of chainsaws, come-alongs, tarps, screws, drills, generators, small generators. And so there's 10 of them they're up here, and they're gonna actually bring all this stuff back themselves on planes on Monday because of the shipping. Logistics are actually a nightmare, right? Because of obviously everything's displaced. So that's how dire they are for this equipment. So I've decided we have a fundraising truck in our showroom or whatever, and we fill it up every year with it's Christmas, the Rock 95 Christmas toy drive and the food bank. So I said, why don't we do this with tools and needed items, and that's what we put together, and we're getting amazing response already. It's incredible.
And how can the public help then? How would they be able to assist?
The public can assist by, if they bring a donation of the needed items that I described over to 551 Bryan Drive in their location, and just drop it off and meet our truck. Put it inside the back of the truck. That's it. It could be anything from screws, like little simple screws. You can think about anything that needs to be rebuilt. That's what they could use.
Yeah, I mean, Jamaica, part of it anyway, especially was devastating. As you indicated, there's an extreme case of people who remain isolated, literally cut off.
Yes, absolutely. Ian, the storm's over, but I think it's just begun in a way, because the rebuilding and the relief and all that, it's just the infrastructure. They're talking 1 year for power in West Jamaica to be restored. And then
there's the economy of scale too, where people normally, a lot of people would head to Jamaica, will be probably scratching the island from their winter, travel plans possibly.
Absolutely, they're devastated. And I was talking to in Florida here, an Uber driver. She was from Jamaica actually, and I started telling her about what we're doing and all that. She was, oh great. She was talking to her friend this morning that has a tourist boat, private tourist boat, where he takes people out snorkeling or whatever. He lost his boat. So those are the stories that it's just gone. These people live on that, and it's going to take a long time to rebuild that, and I mean the work's going to be incredible. So, fellow Barrie guy, Barrie always gives, and and we always reach out to our neighbors, and if you think about it, a lot of us have been welcomed into the Jamaican community over the years on trips and all that, and they've been wonderful people, and it's never been needed. We need to step in and help them now.
And how will the materials get from Barrie to Jamaica?
They are bringing them. There's 10 people that are bringing them. They're picking them up on Monday and flying back to Jamaica with them. Again, if you can help, drop-offs can be made at Glass Doctor at 551 Bryan Drive.
Took some time for them to get their skates in the stirrups, but the Barrie Colts have put together a 4-game winning streak and galloped into second place in the OHL Central Division. Here with their weekly update is Barrie 360's Julius Hearn and Colts analyst Gene Pereira.
7-7-0-3. They're back to 500 in terms of the points percentage, up to fourth in the East after a 4-game win streak. So now 3 of those wins coming in overtime. Keyshawn Aitchison with back-to-back OT winners in the last 2. First off, for him, getting those back-to-back overtime winners, what does that really mean to him in the grander scheme of things this year?
Well, he's really picked up from last year when he took his offensive game to another level, and it just continues again. His clutch ability, to come up with just big-time goals, and he did it last year, 6 overtime winners last year, and, repeating that again already here early this season. And he's just a guy that has delivered big-time at key moments, and, for a team coming off a 6-game losing skid to turn around here with 4 straight, he's been a big part of that.
That big Brantford game on that Wednesday night, they were up 3-0, and then they were up 4-1 in that third period. 3 quick goals by the Bulldogs sent it to overtime. How good really is that Brantford team? They haven't lost in regulation so far this year.
That's a very good team. I think they're the best team in the Ontario Hockey League right now, and they only got stronger with a big recent trade for Ben Danford, the first-round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Zachary Sandu. But for the Colts, obviously not happy with the collapse in the third period. They said, look, if we want to be considered one of the top teams, we can't be doing that. But I'll tell you, that Brantford team really ramped up the pressure in the third. And again, for the Colts to find a way to pull that win out, I know that was big as well. Getting Emil Hemming back was huge. He had an outstanding game and just made a big difference, especially with the penalty kill helping out in that area.
I know it was a comeback game for Calvin Crombie. He came to Barrie from Brantford earlier on in the offseason. What were the emotions like for him in his first game back in Brantford?
Yeah, obviously he was over at the other side visiting with players. It was a big night for him, and it was something that he looked forward to all year. The ability to having spent his career with the Bulldogs. There's a lot of familiar faces, and I think for him it was tough, but I'm sure pretty happy that he got the win.
Then they go to Sarnia at home against Sarnia the next night. Colts are down 2-0 in that first period. They come back and they eventually win it again in overtime. What was the difficult part of coming back from a multi-goal deficit in that one?
Yeah, that was kind of like I think their weakest effort of this kind of current win streak that they're on. They didn't play well, and it was one of those games where they got rewarded for it. They found a way to pull it out late, but just not a great effort for the opening 60 minutes, but able to kind of get it in and get a win, which was important on home ice.
Yeah, and another home ice game against Erie, and what stands out to me is they held Erie to 1 for 6 on the power play. So Colts very successful relative to what they've been so far this year in the penalty kill. What have you seen that's improving for them on special teams?
Yeah, I think there's no coincidence that the penalty kill has gotten better with the return of Emil Hemming, from the American Hockey League. He becomes a big factor. Him and Cole Baudouin up front on that penalty kill, and it's just improved in leap and bounds here. And they give up that late goal to Erie on the power play, but 2-man advantage. But it's been much better, and that's a big factor. They're still last overall, but much better. And I think if you look at one key area during this win streak that the Colts have really improved on, there's no doubt it's been the penalty kill, and it's been a big factor.
You mentioned Emil Hemming coming back, and obviously that was huge last week, the last time we spoke about it. Would you say that he's your standout player in this stretch, aside from Baudouin and Aitchison, or is there someone else in your mind that has really kind of made a name for himself in the last 4 games?
Yeah, it's been a lot of the veterans. There's no doubt Emil Hemming. If you just look at his game, the calmness to it at key points, he's delivering. In that Brantford game, he had a penalty shot that he was stopped in the final minute of the game that could have won it for Barrie, but Orzie Duke still goes out and helps sets up the winner, which really just speaks to volume of what he brings. And again, I think there's that expectation that he's ready to, as he said so himself, I want to dominate coming back, and he's certainly done that in his return here early.
When you look at some of the first-year players for me, I've noticed guys like Joe Salandra, Cole Emerton. These are some of the guys that have also kind of really made names for themselves, even though if they're not getting on the score sheet as much as some of the veteran guys. But maybe those two guys specifically, what stands out about them in their first year in the OHL?
I think with Salandra, I think when you take him, he's going to score more. I mean, you see it. I think you can see it. He's pretty creative too. He's a great guy that uses his teammates out there in a sense, great vision, and he got to play with Bowden and Hemming, which is a pretty nice line setup for a young winger, and he did pretty well with those two. And again, I think you really see him start to pick up his game, and I think the points are going to come after that. Another guy that has been out, Julius here, that another young guy, that Eamon Edgar. He's just one of these guys that I think he's gonna turn, get some experience. I think we saw that here before he got injured, got knocked out, took a hit in that Brantford game, and missed some games here. But he should be back in the lineup soon. The hopes is that he's back Thursday night. And again, he's just a young guy that looks like he's ready to take it to another level. And I know there's some comparisons along the Brian Little lines, and that's a big comparison for him. But this young guy is you really start to see it with him. Just great vision, a really good shot, and I think he's a guy that's going to turn a corner here soon.
Yeah, we talked about him last week. It seems like a younger guy that's on the up and up, which is great to see, and hopefully we see him back sooner than later. A few more for me, Gene. We're just over a quarter of the way through the season, so in my opinion, I think it's too late to say it's early on in the year now. First off, just over a quarter way through, how would you describe this team?
Jekyll and Hyde. I think off to a disappointing start and a slow start, but I think the expectations were so much more for this team, and I think we're starting to see it. We're starting to see it round out, and I think the one area they're going to need some more scoring, and whether that is done through via a trade route, but that option becomes available. Obviously, when it's a far ways off the January 10th trade deadline, but when you look at this team and its abilities, especially the Eastern Conference, yes, the Brantford Bulldogs are the class of the East, but I think after that it's fairly open. Ottawa's got off to a good start in Niagara, but I think Barrie is right there with them. So, that's something they're going to have to determine here. But for me, it's about getting, they're getting production from their top veteran guys, which is good. I know Ben Revick, the goaltending, young Jaswell has played well in net as well. So their defense is there. Emerton, the young guy back there, has had a really solid start to his career, and Keith Vader as well. So I think you're starting to see the blue line really kind of mold into it. Up front, for me, it's that secondary scoring. Salandra and these guys stepping up, and whether if that's the case, then maybe you go out and add a veteran forward, another veteran forward or two to help with the scoring depth.
We saw early trades last year for the Colts really pay dividends for them later on in the year. Are you expecting something similar like that in the next few weeks or so?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think there's that talk. Like, you always wonder, okay, can we compete? And I think after the start, this Barrie team had a lot of games on home ice that they didn't take advantage of, and you start to wonder that maybe this team doesn't make the run. But they're a team that was built to make a couple runs here. They made one last year, the Eastern Conference Final. They believe that they can take another run here. And I think we're going to see something, in terms of addition, because I think their biggest area of need is that some more scoring up front.
What have you noticed between last year's group with Williamson behind the bench and this year with Smoskowitz behind the bench as a first-year coach?
Yeah, I think there's the good thing is with Smoskowitz being an assistant coach, there's continuity there in terms of the game, but. Dylan Smoskowitz, he's tried to been a bit more positive outlook with the young guys here early and not delivering early. But with a veteran coach with Marty all the years, I think it was a pretty smooth transition in that sense. But I think for Dylan, he's kept with it, and that positive, just that positive outlook I think it's helped. It's helped get the guys back on track, and it's something that they look like they're ready to turn a corner here and compete with Niagara for the top of the Central Division.
So I mentioned a quarter way through the season. Seems like it's right around that mark for every team in the league. What's your biggest surprise league-wide so far this year?
I think Ottawa and the 67s, I think, are right up there. That's a good hockey team. That's just very, very solid defensively. Really play the game right, and they've had a nice start. But I think the biggest surprise to me is the Owen Sound attack. I think a lot of people expected them to be better, but the Colts Highway 26 rivals have got off to a fantastic start. And Julius, you look at those trades, right? You give up a guy like Kobe Barlow, who's a first-round pick of Winnipeg. Owen Sound did in that trade to Oshawa and rebuilding. And it's always tough moving those veterans. But what's the return? They give David Bedkowski, who's a real solid veteran defenseman, and then Tristan Delisle, who's just been on a run here. He's got a point in every single game, the longest scoring streak in the Ontario Hockey League. He's third in OHL scoring. So it just really speaks volumes of how much that trade has helped Owen Sound. But I think the attack, the Highway 26 rivals, they're the biggest story early on this season.
Yeah, we've seen them beat the Colts each of the first 3 times against them so far this year. Big stretch coming up here. Home and home with Sudbury, and then at Sault Ste. Marie on Saturday. So 3 games in 3 days. A lot of travel in this stretch. What are you expecting from these next 3 games for the Colts?
Yeah, I think, I remember talking to Bud Stefanski, the old Barrie coach, and he used to always, focus on that first game of the week and how important it was that you kind of get off to a good start and get momentum rolling. And Barrie's got back on home ice. They got to start taking advantage in these games on home ice. They did last week. You've got to build on that. And here's a game against one of the OHL's bottom teams that really on home ice you got to take advantage of. And you start that, then you go right back into Sudbury the next night. And if you can build that, you get 2 wins. There's a winning weekend already to begin with. And then you face a tough Sault Ste. Marie team on Saturday. Their first 3 games in 3 weekends, which is always a test for any team, that third game in 3 nights. But if the Colts can take advantage here of a Sudbury team that is in a rebuilding phase, their first 2 games and get off to a great start, it's virtually going to wipe out that 6-game losing skid that they were on.
Yeah, it seems like this is the most positive this team has been so far this year, coming off this 4-game win streak. Gene, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Julius.
No more speed cameras in Ontario come the end of next week. The province banning them, saying they don't really slow drivers down, that they're nothing more than a cash grab. So what's next in terms of slowing traffic, especially in school zones? Here again is our Ian Maclennan with Innisfil Mayor Lynn Dolan.
So, Mayor Dolan, you were among 22 municipal leaders that signed off on a letter urging the Premier to reconsider plans for Ontario's speed camera ban. That didn't happen. I'm just wondering how you're accepting, I guess, the decision that came down the other day.
We have no choice but to accept the decision that's come down. I am disappointed. I really feel that there was opportunity to make improvements to address, different criticisms we'd heard of the program and, make adjustments to it to make it more palatable, because honestly, it's the only thing. We've tested multiple pilots of traffic calming measures and measured all the data. So measured the data before, got the average speed before, during, and after, and it had a bigger impact than any other measure that we put in place, that we piloted. So,
and what measures? Sorry, Mayor. What other measures did you pilot?
So we did raised crosswalks. We did narrowing of streets with bollards. We did line painting. We narrowed roads with curbs that come in. and certainly roundabouts and signage and speed, all the things that the government is now talking about putting in place. We've already tried, and they did have limited success, but nothing slowed cars down as much as the automated speed enforcement, and particularly in our municipality, they were all in school zones.
That was my next question. The program implemented in 2024. So how many cameras are currently operating? And again, you say they are all in school zones.
We were to have 4. We might not have got to the 4 because understanding that this legislation was in the works. But yeah, so we would, the plan was to alternate them for different school zones throughout the year, because one of the interesting impacts we found from one of our first tests was that even a month after the camera had been moved, the 85th percentile of the average speed was still 10 kilometers lower after the camera had gone. So there was definitely that residual effect that people were just, a lot of it's learned behavior, right? We learn behaviors and then we stick to them. And unfortunately, we won't have that opportunity.
Now, the Premier has said the speed cameras were a cash grab. How did you digest that comment?
Yeah, so we heard that quite a bit from people, but honestly, I would argue that isn't the case. In a perfect world, they would make $0. And everybody would obey the speed limit in the places where we have the most vulnerable citizens. If there were to be revenue generated from these after the processing costs, our council asks staff to make sure that any revenue went towards other traffic calming measures. Speeding and aggressive drivers is far and away the largest thing we hear about as members of council. It is our largest complaint, and from working with other municipalities, and I hear from my colleagues, we're not alone. It's the same in most municipalities. You
may not have the numbers offhand, but do you have an estimate, Mayor Dolan, in terms of latest revenue and how much those cameras did bring into the town outside of the cost to operate them and so forth?
I'm afraid I don't have those figures, but our program wasn't in very long. We'll hear about more of that during the budget process this year. That was why the letter went out to the Premier. Like there was lots of things we could have done to appease people. Like, the first incident could have been a warning letter. We could have all managed at the same threshold, which is the difference between what the camera is set to go off and the posted speed limit. There's lots of things we could have done to improve the system in the eyes of those who felt it was unfair, but still kept our kids safe.
Do you have speed bumps or anything that the Premier is already suggesting in school zones, or will they now have to be added if you feel that's the right move?
They would have to be added if we can. Like, speed bumps are not always effective in certain places. Certainly our first responders aren't crazy about them. Transit buses aren't crazy about them. Snowplows aren't crazy about them. So sometimes people who live near them aren't crazy about them because they are quite noisy. And you certainly can't put them on highways. So there's places that it wouldn't work. But we've piloted a number of things, and we'll continue to do everything we can to keep our kids safe. It's just I feel like this is quite a setback. Is it your expectation or hope that the Premier, if he wants what he's recommended, be in place of speed cameras, that there will be some funding? I should certainly hope so. Yes, we're going to need some help. Because we've already invested in this infrastructure now that is no longer legal. So we'd certainly appreciate any help we get, and more than just the money, but prove to us that there is a solution that works as well as automated speed enforcement does. I think all the mayors, including yourself, want to be fully reimbursed for the costs of canceling this program. Would that include the operation of the cameras, the purchases, etc.? it depends, I guess, on whether or not some municipalities signed a contract with a vendor. Some municipalities outright purchased the cameras. So for everyone's in a bit of a different situation, and certainly we'll be asking staff to fully analyze that once the cameras have been shut off. I think it's November the 15th. But it's my hope that people will, at least all of this media attention on this subject will make people think twice about speeding in school zones.
This is what Barrie's talking about from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely, joined by Kate Foster, our friend at Barrie Fire, the public educator. And you are in a big week of education this week with Carbon Monoxide Awareness Week. Very, very important week because carbon monoxide isn't going away, but are you finding you're making headway with people with the awareness campaign?
We're trying very hard, and I think that there is more awareness than ever about carbon monoxide and the hazards that come from carbon monoxide. So we're in a good place, but we can always be better. We can always do more, and that's what we're striving to do this week.
Let's remind everybody what carbon monoxide is and why we have to be so diligent about it.
Right. So carbon monoxide is really a poisonous gas that can be released into our homes depending on how our appliances are functioning or maybe not functioning, as it were. And so we will sometimes see this gas sort of mix in with the air. It's a little bit different than smoke. It's not, you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't even smell it, but it will mix in with the air, and it can create some really deadly effects for people living in their homes. So we try to get the word out for just to let people know the different things that you need to do to be aware, and also to talk about the importance of the alarms in your house. They will give you that early detection and warning that you need.
And we have an important update about alarms, but we'll get to that in a minute. If somebody hears the alarm go off, what do you do?
So that's a great question. I find so many people kind of question it because it's not like smoke. They can't see it. But when you hear your carbon monoxide alarm sound, what you need to do is exit your home as quickly as possible, and you need to call 911. Don't call the front desk at the fire station. You just want to go directly through to our dispatchers. Our fire crews will come out and test the air to see what might be malfunctioning and what's going on. And it's always a better safe than sorry situation. We would rather come out and do that test for you than have to come out and respond to a call where maybe you're unconscious.
I know there are some combination smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Is there a difference in the sound that comes out of them depending on whether it's smoke or carbon monoxide?
Yes, every alarm is slightly different, but typically when you hear 3 beeps, that would be an indicator for smoke or fire. When you hear 4 beeps, that would indicate your carbon monoxide. And we have some wonderful new technology where our alarms will actually also give you an audible notification of beep, 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 fire, or beep, 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 carbon monoxide.
And then there's that really, really annoying beep that comes once in a while that's telling you, change my batteries.
That's right. The chirp. If you wonder if a bird has been released into your home, look around, look up. It could be your smoke alarm chirping saying that you need to replace your batteries or its end of life cycle. These alarms last typically up to 10 years and they do need to be replaced. So when you hear those noises, usually check your power, check your batteries, but also check the date and make sure that it hasn't expired.
Time was you needed one carbon monoxide alarm in the home. That is changing as of January 1st in some circumstances.
Yes, it is changing actually. So our Ontario Fire Code has been updated. And what that means is specific to our carbon monoxide alarms come January 1st, where it used to be a requirement to have an alarm outside of sleeping areas. Now it is a requirement to additionally have them on every level or story of your home. So it's really mirroring our smoke alarms as well and the requirements that are in place for those. So when you have a fuel burning appliance, when you have a fireplace, when you have an attached garage, come January 1st, you also have to make sure your smoke and CO alarms are outside of sleeping areas and on every level. Even if someone doesn't sleep on a level, you're going to need a CO alarm there.
For homeowners, it's easy. They need to go out and make sure they've got this done. If you're a renter, is it the renter's responsibility? Is the landlord responsible for making sure they're in there?
That's such a good question. We get that all the time. When you're in a renting situation or a tenant situation, the landlords are required by law to make sure that you have smoke alarms, that they are installed, up and working. You, as a tenant, are required by law not to disable them or tamper with them in any way. So if you're frustrated because they sound when you're making toast or cooking, could just be the wrong type is there. Never take it down. Don't disable it. That's actually against the law.
And if you have questions, you're readily available.
That's right. Yeah. You can always reach out to Barrie Fire. We have a great online presence as well, barrie.ca/fire or /fire safety. As well, if you're looking for updates on this new code, this Ontario Fire Code, the changes that are coming in, it's ontario.ca/carbon monoxide.
All right, Kate, thanks as always for coming in for the valuable information, and we'll look forward to you coming back before the new year to remind us of the change.
That sounds wonderful. Happy to be here.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
A 40-bed modular facility arrived in Barrie this week that will form part of the Campus of Care recently announced by the County of Simcoe and Barrie Cares, a group of business leaders hoping to help ease the homeless crisis in the Barrie area. How? Barrie Cares Director Paul Larsh lays things out for our Ian Maclennan.
Homelessness front and center, not just in Barrie, but across the country. Introduce us to Barrie Cares. What is it?
Barrie Cares is really a unique group. It came together about 18 months ago with some concerned, like-minded citizens that are either into philanthropy or have done a lot to help the community and look at the challenges that Barrie was facing. And just like it's a problem today, it was a problem 18 months ago. So a few of us got together and we just started brainstorming. You know, we're not experts in homelessness by any stretch. What could we do? And I think what we did do was to bring a business sense to the problem, in the sense that we, you know, in business, you look at a problem and you tackle it and you break it down into certain components and you bring in, you know, what you need to fix it, and you put strategy together and you execute on that strategy, and you put KPIs in place to see if you're achieving those strategies. So when we started talking to the stakeholders, when I talk about stakeholders, the ones who can actually make a change or a decision, and that's the county primarily, because the county, it comes under their jurisdiction.
Right, the shelter services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the city of Barrie, but then beyond that, all the service providers, the Canadian Mental Health Association, RVH. We also had talks with Georgian College, the Barrie Police Services. And then when we started just talking to them, we started finding that there was commonality amongst all of them as to the fact that they really wanted to work together, but they are silos to a certain extent. And it's not, I'm not detriment that they're like that. That's just the natural way of the way these organizations work. But they didn't really talk to each other as much as we thought they did. But to their credit, they were very open to wanting to work collaboratively with what you would consider outsiders, which was us, and to see if we can take a different approach to this.
So taking a different approach, what is that going to be? And I know at a news conference recently, Barrie Cares talked about phase one. So introduce us to that.
Sure. Well, just a little background to that. When we did, again, bring these stakeholders together and people that we figured could contribute to it, we went through and this is, again, stolen from the business world, we went through a strategic planning session that actually Georgian College facilitated, and they did an excellent job, where we literally had all of the stakeholders together, and we went through, several sessions and hours of trying to, look at what are best practices, who is having success in other communities, what seems to be working, what isn't, what are the barriers that they seem to be running into to tackle this problem. So a lot of that we were able to get out in the open and then come out with this concept called the Campus of Care. And the Campus of Care, this is what we call it, is really you have to have a centralized intake area for people that are facing homelessness, because right now there's people can go to different. They can go to Busby, or they can go to a church, or they can go to the Salvation Army. That's right, and they don't really know what to do or where to go. But if we do our job right, there will be an area, a central intake area, where we can. Not we. When I say we, Barrie Cares, we're not the service providers. We're the people behind it. But the experts can allow people to be assessed and triage them to say, okay, listen, with what you're telling us, where you're at in your life, in your situation, this is likely the best path that we can offer you. And it could be issues that have to do with just being out of work, to mental health, to sometimes it's drug addiction, sometimes it's a combination of all three. But what is the issue, and then how can we help you, and then triage that person into the right area. But during that process, we have to be able to offer them at least a place where they can have some dignity and some time to reflect, and that's where this Campus of Care is. And the first one we're doing is this on Tiffin Street. It's a old paramedic building that's not being used anymore. The county is going to be putting in a 40 temporary bed structure next door from these rooms that they bring in from Calgary, which are really cool. But we'll be able to retrofit that room with a kitchen, showers, and a few rooms that are going to be there for people that are the service providers to be able to help and assess people in what they have to do. And with that, there's different avenues. The county also launched the Heart Hub program this year.
Through the province, yep.
Through the province. We were the first ones to get it. And actually, Barrie Cares was instrumental in bringing that together. And that was a great example. We were in Mayor Nuttall's office with the stakeholders. And when this first came out, and we said, okay, how do we all work together to get this? And I think I could be wrong, but I do believe Barrie was one of the first to get approved because, again, we worked together. And already through that system, people, particularly with drug addiction issues, are getting results. Like we can see in real time there's certain people that are going in and coming out better on the other side.
So we have the paramedic station. Do you have a timeline? Is it going to act as a warming center initially, or
it will? If when the snow flies, you need warming centers. But really, most of the money, the $250,000 that will go into there, will be to retrofit the garage there into a kitchen, and with tables, and to fix up some of the offices. And because they had washing machines there and so on and so forth, to fix those things up so that they can help with the people that are going to be next door.
Now, this Campus of Care, you don't have a property yet?
No.
It'll be city-owned. What ideally would you like it to go? How big? What's sort of the vision?
Well, in our mind, we believe the facility has to be big enough to accommodate not only the issues that we're going through today, but into the future. So it's likely going to be somewhere between 20 and 30,000 square feet. The land has to be somewhere that is very accessible for people. So it has to be on, bus. It can't be too far away or inaccessible, because that'll defeat the entire purpose. It has to be easy for people to get to. So we have been in discussions with the city of Barrie for a while, and there's a few parcels that we're looking at. There's a few that might be coming up that aren't available right now. So those discussions are ongoing. But ultimately, what we're hoping is this temporary Campus of Care that we're putting in now could hold us for the 3 or 4 or 5 years that it's going to take to open the permanent Campus of Care.
And a permanent campus, what would it look like in terms of, how many people you can accommodate, how it will be funded, and, your strategic planning, what has it told you?
Well, certainly in a perfect world for Barrie Cares, our group would be that once this thing starts, that we're done. Like we don't exist anymore or need to exist anymore, because it'll be self-running. The county, again, will be the lead operator, but we're just helping them bring everybody together. But it will likely just be bigger than what we're currently talking about and have additional facilities. And again, depending on where it is, I think we're probably looking at anywhere between 50 and 60 or 70 beds. We don't want this to be a permanent. We don't want people staying there all the time. We're looking at 30, 60 day. Get in, let's assess how can we or some level of government help, and how can we put you on a path, and how can we make sure that if it doesn't work, that you could come back if you want. And of course, people need to want the help. That's one of the big things. But communities that have done this or versions of it have found that they can usually treat and get results with about 80% of the people that want the help.
What communities have you sort of looked at and bounced off and said we're kind of going with that kind of model?
I think London, Ontario has a similar type of campus of care. I think what we've tried to do is cherry pick all the best from different areas. So in a way, we might be, and I'm hoping, a model for other communities. And we'll start gathering real-time data over the next couple of years with this temporary campus of care to see if in fact the theory holds out and does work.
What role will current shelter providers, obviously County of Simcoe oversees and delegates, so that it may be their determination, but what role do the current shelter providers do you foresee having in this? Or
first of all the service providers thank God we have them, from Busby to Redwood, the churches do a lot. I think they'll all play a role in this, and they all work directly with the county. On how they provide services and assessments and so on. But like I said, we're not going to be the provider ourselves. They will. So they will be, I'm sure, brought into the fold to find out what works best and how they can contribute depending on who the organization is or part of the organization. But right now we're just at the point where we're just getting the thing up and running.
Right, and for somebody might say, look and go, oh, well, here's another provider. We talked about the silo. For someone trying to navigate the system, it can be very overwhelming, even if you have supports behind you. How would you say this critic that might say, and there were some that said, it's just another, it's another avenue, but
listen. There's no doubt that there's going to be some. No doubt that there's going to be some doubt out there, and. We share it to a certain extent, but I think the one thing that we're hoping to do, and this is the one reason why we made a kind of a public face last week and had a lot of dignitaries out and to say it out, is that we're hoping we'll keep everyone's feet to the fire a bit, that they're going to know that they've gone on record to say that they've signed on to this process and that they were part of the planning process.
It's replacing some expectations.
So yeah, and that's all we can do. At the end of the day, we're not government, we're not elected, we're volunteers. Like none of us are doing this and getting paid for it, or like we're just people that care about our community a lot, and frankly care a lot about the people that are for whatever reason struggling and down on their luck.
And if people want more information about Barrie Cares?
The best place to go is barriecares.ca. Very easy to get to. It talks a lot about what we're up to. It talks about this Campus of Care project, and there's a link there if anyone wants to make a donation. We're trying to raise $250,000. We believe a lot of that will be corporate, but we think a lot of it will be just small donations that we're going to need from the community who believe that this thing makes sense. We've raised about $86,000 so far. We have, TD Bank has come in for $35,000, which is fantastic, and we're talking to the other banks. This will be the first step in making a difference, and it'll be a great template to take us to the next level.
Nice when a plan comes together, and it is for local golfer Drew Nesbitt. Barrie 360's Julius Hearn caught up with him between swings.
Congratulations on receiving Corn Ferry Tour status. That's really incredible. Take me through kind of the moment when you realized you made that final putt and you got your status to promotion.
Yeah, no, it was pretty awesome. The putt to win, obviously put me in the top 10. So that was a pretty special moment on its own. But then there was still a little bit of stress the following week, which I had to hang on to stay in the top 10. It was highly likely, but obviously there was a mathematical possibility that guys could finish in certain places and push me out of the top 10. Thankfully for me, that didn't happen. But yeah, no, it's not overwhelming, but just a really, really deep, satisfying feeling, something I've worked very hard for a very long time. So to kind of see it, come to life this year and give myself that opportunity going forward, I'm just really excited for everything that's going to come.
So you win that Victoria Open in a playoff over AJ Ewer. Take me through kind of the journey of that tournament for you.
Going into it, knowing I needed to probably win to get in the top 10, it made it just very clear. I had my dad caddying for me. So we just had this really strong game plan and a really quiet confidence that we were able to execute, or that we were going to execute on the plan that we had. And yeah, it was just a kind of a slower week. Shot a couple good scores Thursday, Friday. Played well Saturday, kind of going into Sunday. AJ had played phenomenally. I think he shot 59 on Friday or something like that. So, he had a 4-shot lead, I believe. And just going into that last round, I'm like, you know what? I know I'm going to need a good one. And just one shot at a time, one putt at a time, see where the strokes add up. And I was able to make a few really good putts on the back nine that got me into a playoff. And then I was just really calm, really poised, didn't panic, just kind of let it happen. And then it kind of worked out where I ended up having a putt to win, and I was able to capitalize. So it was just a solid byproduct of doing the right things over 4 days and letting the results kind of line up for me. Golf's hard. It's one of those sports that the harder you try doesn't mean that you're going to have better results. So having a smart game plan and just playing within yourself is honestly the only way to succeed, really. So I was happy to be able to do that.
What's it like having your dad caddying for you? And is that a common occurrence for you?
I don't know if common is, but he's definitely caddied for me in the past, and I love it. I think we make a good team. He won't be caddying for me full time on the Corn Ferry Tour. I have another guy for that job, but it's a really calming feeling. We get along very well, obviously, and just sharing that moment with him, meaning what it meant to me personally, and then what it also meant to him for me. Kind of all the things we've been through, the ups and downs, and it's just made a lot of hard work really worth it. I
saw that video of you hug your dad once you get that the promotion. What did you say to your dad in that moment when you guys kind of embraced? I said we did it. Kind of started crying a little bit, and he just mentioned how proud of me he was of me, and more honestly, it was more of just an embrace. It was just a lot of emotions, kind of being let out, and then pride and joy. A lot of hard work that resulted in some pretty awesome experience, and a lot of fun things to look forward to as well. So ahead of the 2022 season, you also got Corn Ferry status for that year. What's different about this time around?
This time around is guaranteed starts. Last time I only was exempt into the final stage of Corn Ferry qualifying school, which granted me a membership on the tour, but it didn't give me guaranteed starts to play in those tournaments. I had to earn that in the final stage. Back then, there was no qualification directly to the PGA Tour, so I believe it was the top 40 guys would have earned guaranteed starts. I was unable to do that, and I was left in that kind of gray area where I was a member, but you weren't getting starts, and you had to Monday qualify. And I did that for the first probably 2 or 3 months of the season with very little success. I didn't get into anything. I was really close, missed by one, missed at a playoff, things like that. And then I ended up going to play in Canada, the PGA Tour Canada at that time, and I ended up losing my card completely on both tours. So I had no status for 2023. Whereas this time around, I'm fully exempt for 14 starts. As long as I'm making cuts, I should be able to continue that throughout the rest of the year. But, my goals are a little bit higher than that. I don't want to just make cuts. I want to go out there and contend and compete and see and show what my game can do at the higher levels too.
Aside from that big win in September, was there a specific stretch or event you felt that there was something was pushing you to the next level, or there's a difference being made somewhere?
Yeah, I think the first event in the Canada swing in New Brunswick, where I finished third, that kind of really propelled me a little bit. Even though I didn't play my greatest golf after there for a couple of weeks, but I shot one over the first round, and even on PGA Tour Americas, shooting over par, you're getting lapped. Like, guys are shooting much lower than that. And I ended up shooting 18 under over my next 3 days to get me at 17 under for the tournament and finish solo third. So that kind of gave me a big boost in points, which are very, very top heavy. Finishing 30, 40th even over the course every event of the season isn't going to get you up the points list, as you could have one or two really good finishes, and the points list is just, again, so top heavy that high finishes are mandatory essentially to move on. So that was a turning point, definitely. Mentally for sure, just that, like, hey, you've got this, you can keep doing it. And then just quiet confidence going into Victoria, and then finally it came out and was able to win.
So you're the head pro at National Pines in Innisfil?
Head teaching professional.
Yeah. How does a golfer on the Americas Tour balance playing events and coaching kind of at the same time?
It was an interesting experience, something that I had never done before. Just for the last 10 years, I had basically been playing golf competitively without holding a real job, if you want to call it that. I just was able to really compartmentalize that. When I was at National Pines, I was there for our members. I was there to teach. I had a job to do. And then when I was not teaching, I was able to practice and play and keep my game sharp. And the moment I left for a tournament, I switched back into this. You're a golfer, you're a player, you're here to do a job, execute on that job the best I can, see where this, whatever I had coming up next, events wise, still focus on that. And then whenever I was returning to National Pines, it was back to how can I, best provide a good experience for our members at the club.
How do you handle the pressure of knowing that, one event or one tournament can change the whole course of your season or your career, either positively or negatively?
You know what? I think you have to just look at it practically, and it's one great round doesn't make you an amazing golfer. One bad round doesn't make you a terrible golfer. It's about how you do it over the course of a season, over the course of multiple years. So just staying within yourself, trusting that your game over the course of a year or 2 or 5 years is going to hold up, be consistent enough to play. At the end of the day, that's what separates guys who kind of make it and the guys who don't. Any guy who's playing at a professional level has the ability to go out and win. It's just, can you do it over a long enough period of time to move up and start to kind of make your way to the PGA Tour and then stay there? Obviously, that's the end goal. It's once you make it, it's great, but now you have to continue playing at that level in order to stay there. So it's just the quiet confidence, the self-belief that over however many events you're going to play, that you just still continue to just do the right things, let the results be byproducts of the right process and the right mental beliefs and the right headspace, rather than just forcing something to happen, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So I think it's more of just a byproduct of doing the right things, and the results will take care of themselves.
So ahead of next year, what are you expecting in terms of like a lifestyle change or even a mentality change now on this, this greater level of golf?
It shouldn't really change too much. The mentalities the mental side of the game doesn't change. I'm going to return to Florida. I used to live there in the wintertime, and that's kind of where I'll be going again. So, which will allow me to prepare myself to play at that level during the wintertime. But yeah, no, the mental side doesn't change at all. It's the same game. I always tell people the scores are always consistent, the names will change. So if you believe in yourself that I'm going to be able to put up certain scores on said golf course, doesn't matter who's in the field, whether it's the Masters or a Korn Ferry Tour event, the scores will dictate the results. And it's just, can you believe in yourself, execute on your plan in order to shoot the scores that are required to win at the highest levels?
In your mind, you're 30 years old, being a rookie on the tour next year, does that mean anything for you?
No, not at all. I've become good friends with Taylor Funk, and we talk about his dad Fred, and he was a late rookie on the PGA Tour. I think he was in his early 30s. So, and there's other guys I've played with, same scenario. So no, it doesn't bother me at all. Age is just a number. If anything, I look at it like I have a lot more experience to draw on from other guys. If a guy has just come out of college and he's kind of had a quick success and he jumps to the Korn Ferry Tour and things start to go wrong for him, he doesn't have as much experience to draw on. Whereas at least at the professional level, where I've got a lot of professional golf experience. I've played on the PGA Tour 6 times. Will be 7 times next spring, or next spring, and at the Canadian Open, which I've received an exemption into for being the #1 Canadian on the PGA Tour America's points list. So yeah, again, it's just an experience thing. Just believing that everything I'm going to do, my plan, my process, and my game are going to hold up, and that's just for me to believe.
What's something about being on tour that the average viewer at home doesn't really realize?
It's a lot of work, and it's a lot more tiring than it might seem. You go out there and you're playing Thursday to Sunday, you're playing, or hopefully playing on the weekend at least, 18 holes a day under a lot of stress, competition environment. Wednesdays we have pro-ams, Tuesdays are practice round days, and then Mondays are travel days. So when you start to go week after week after week after week, you get very little time off. You got to take care of your body. When your game starts to slip on you a little bit, you have to be able to self-correct without going to, spend an entire week figuring it out. You got to be able to make small adjustments on the fly and trust it. So I think on a week-to-week basis, it's more just about how little time you actually have, and it's not all luxurious as people might seem or think it is. It's definitely a lot of grind, a lot of travel, a lot of hotels, a lot of airports, a lot of long drives. But there's also a lot of benefit that, especially now in the Corn Ferry Tour, you can play for a pretty good sum of money. And then obviously that even grows exponentially on the PGA Tour. So the financial reward, but it's more just the internal reward, is we want to play golf to win golf tournaments. Being paid for it, it's just a huge bonus.
You mentioned the Canadian Opens you've played in 3, and then 4th will be next year.
Yeah.
What have you learned most about playing in the National Open for Canada?
Not to make more of it than it is. It's just a golf tournament. I think especially the first few times you want to do so good because it is your National Open, and I'm very proud Canadian. But again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Having a good result is a byproduct of doing the correct things in terms of preparation, game plan, and execution. And the names are always going to change, but the scores are relatively going to be the same. So if you can go out on the golf course and shoot 17 to 22 under par, depending on how the weather and the course setup is, you're probably going to be in contention to try and win. So whether it's Rory McIlroy or any other player who you're trying to play against, you just have to believe that your game plan and the execution on that game plan is going to get you to a point that gets you in contention to win. And then it's just there is a little bit of luck involved, because you can't control how other guys play. So you could go out, execute, do everything right, and still get beat. But those are also the weeks that you hold your head high and say, hey, I played really good this week. I'm going to build on this, and hopefully next week goes a little bit more in my favor. So it's really just one of those things. Again, it's just controlling what I can control, the preparation, my self-confidence, how my game plan is on the golf course, and then just letting it happen and not really worrying about the result.
At those kinds of events, are there any other players or golfers along those lines that you maybe have met at those events that you've looked up to or even gotten advice from?
I would say mostly our Canadian guys. When Nick Taylor won at Oakdale, I was actually fortunate enough to play 4 holes with him Tuesday afternoon. And I've played 9 holes in one of my other PGA Tour events with Corey Connors, and I've had numerous conversations with Mackenzie Hughes. So I would say those guys are the guys that I've probably got the most advice from, but I also take little things out of it. I remember my first Canadian Open. I remember playing with KJ Choi, and I watched him hit a bunker shot, and I looked at my dad. I said, oh my goodness, that's really, really impressive. The way that he was able to hit it high with lots of spin and control where it landed. And I'm like, man, I got to get better, because this is another level that I'm not quite there yet. So, and I think I've come a long way from that. But yeah, I just keep my eyes open and see what other guys are doing. Maybe they practice a certain way, but at the same time, it's also one of those things where you don't want to get distracted by what other guys are doing. You have to be confident in that what you're doing is going to work for you, and that you've put that plan in place for a reason. And if you go start to change all that, that's not necessarily going to lend itself to positive results. So there is definitely a balance of trying to learn and get advice. And then on the flip side is being really confident that what you're doing is making you better and allowing you to succeed. So it goes a little bit of both ways for sure.
Back to what we were talking about earlier with your caddy. You mentioned new caddy next year. If you've come to a decision on one, who is it, and what goes into the decision of picking a caddy for maybe your first Corn Ferry Tour?
So it's going to be a really good friend of mine, Chris Wilson. He's currently the director of instruction at Kingsville Golf and Country Club, which is down near Windsor. Our relationship started early in my 20s. We moved in. Well, his parents owned a little place in Florida, and through a mutual friend, I ended up moving in with him during the wintertime, and we've just become good friends. He's a very knowledgeable golfer. I lean on him for some swing advice. I don't really have a full-time coach. I do a lot of it myself. I tinker with a few things here and there, and then he's kind of a good set of eyes for me, and he knows my golf game really, really well. So that's a huge part of why we wanted to go, or why I wanted to go that route and hire him as my caddy. The other reason is he craves being out on tour, and he just loves that moment. So I know he's going to be able to do a really good job for me, just because we've been there before. He's caddy for me in the Honda Classic and numerous other events as well. Our game plans are a little bit different, or the way that we look at golf is a little bit different. So having somebody who can call me off a shot when I'm trying to be too aggressive, or just give me that little extra confidence that all the decisions we're making are correct and for the right reasons, that's a hugely important as a caddy. So, and then also somebody who knows me personally and how my mind is working. So that way, if I get down or if I start to get a little pouty, if you want to call it that, then he can kind of, give me a slap on the back and say, hey, let's smarten up here. Let's get this going. Stay positive, do everything we're trying to do correctly and just stick with it. So I think all those reasons are why he's going to be a great caddy for me.
What would you say, is the best part of your game right now and something that you want to improve for next year?
The best part of my game right now is probably how I manage my tee to green play. I hit a lot of fairways. I hit a lot of greens. I think where I can improve more so is just saving shots around the green, making more putts that are makeable putts. I think I definitely leave a few out there every single round when I hit good wedges into 7 to 10 feet and not necessarily make them. So when you look at the guys on the Korn Ferry Tour and just through guys I've talked to, they're putting when they get opportunities to, like, especially makeable putts, not just any putt, but inside of 15 feet, not a ton of break, not crazy fast. Those are the putts that elite players roll in all the time. So the easier shots, not leaving easy shots on the table, I think is where I need to improve upon. The difficult shots, recovery shots, those kind of things, I think are a bit of a strength. So capitalizing on easy opportunities, I think that is the number one thing that will really help me, is not leaving that extra 2 to 3 or 6 shots a tournament when you're like, oh man, I missed a 5-footer, or I had a really easy up and down and I didn't get it up and down. Those are the shots that are going to mean the most to me next year.
You're going to bring it back local a little bit. If you were to bring a Korn Ferry Tour to an event at a local course, which course would it be?
National Pines. No questions. It's hosted a Canadian Tour event in the past. I think we're over 7,000 yards, and our superintendent has done an incredible job. Yeah, it's just the course is immaculate. So I think, one, selfishly, because I know it really well, so I think I would have a good result. And two, I think it's just one of the more championship level golf courses in the area. So that's why I would go with that.
What's so special about the golf community in this area? Obviously, with your teaching, I think you have a good idea of younger players, older players. What's so special about the Barrie area, the Horseshoe Valley area where you're from, about this area and its golfers?
I just think it's a genuine love for the game. Barrie, I think, is a really underrated sports town. With the Barrie Colts and the Bay Cats and a lot of great golfers coming out of this area. We've got some amazing golf courses. To me, it's just really the genuine love. People love to get out and play. They're diehard. They play in poor weather, cold. Our season's so short, so they make the most of it. And I think they're not a spoiled group of golfers that only play when it's nice or only play on perfect conditions. I think a lot of the people in this area genuinely play for the love of the game. And I think that's what makes it special for everybody, is that when they get the opportunity to play, when the snow starts to melt and the spring's rolling around and golf courses are starting to open, everyone's excited to play. And then on the flip side, it's in the fall, everyone's trying to squeeze in a few more rounds before the snow comes. So that just, to me, it just shows that people care and people love it. And it's just something that it's a great community sport. It's a great family sport, and it's a game for a lifetime. So I think that's kind of really what's awesome to see about this area and the golf exploding and so many people wanting to get into the game and learn it and take it up. So, because you can do it forever. It's something you can do your whole life.
What would you tell a young local golfer right now, someone who wants to be in your shoes, follow the kind of path that you've taken?
You have to work harder than you think you do. You have to be more disciplined in a lot of areas of your life than you think you do. And you have to try to get exposed to people who are playing at a higher level than you. If you're the best player in your friends group, you're not getting pushed enough to succeed at an extremely high level. I think you need to play tournaments that make you feel uncomfortable, find a way to really understand what it is you're struggling with, and then on flip side, really get better at what you're good at. There's an interesting, not quote, but just an understanding of getting better. If you only get better at what you're poor at and you neglect what you're really good at, your baseline doesn't really move. But if you get better at what you're poor at and you get better at what you're good at, your baseline moves up. So it's not just about focusing on what you're not so good at and neglecting what you're already good at is actually focusing on both of them, the whole package constantly. And if you can raise your relative baseline of what your, let's just call it scoring average is, you're going to get better.
What does the off season look like for you? Obviously, the Fortinet Cup Championship has come and gone. You mentioned you're going to be back in Florida in the wintertime. How does the next few months work out for you before next season?
Yeah, so I'm going to be here at National Pines for our members until our course closes for the season. And then I will transition into living back down in Florida, and I will get prepared to play PGA Tour Corn Ferry final stage of qualifying. Now, that doesn't mean anything for me other than trying to earn a PGA Tour card. The top 5 players, out of that Corn Ferry final stage, PGA Tour Corn Ferry final stage, earn PGA Tour cards for next season. My status on the Corn Ferry Tour cannot change. So for me, it would be simply, can I go down there with an extremely good prep and play an amazing tournament and try and get in that top 5 to just skip essentially the Corn Ferry Tour and go right to the PGA Tour. That's kind of what my next few months look like. And then regardless of my finish there, I'll either be ready to play in the Bahamas on the Corn Ferry Tour or whatever the first PGA Tour would be. I'm not quite sure what our status would look like coming out of the Q school, but we still get the guys who finish in that top 5 will still get a pretty good number of events on the PGA Tour. So one of those two scenarios will be pretty awesome.
Well, Drew, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming down. Congratulations on the promotion. I look forward to seeing you in the wintertime with the qualifying and next season on the tour.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great to be here and great chatting with you. Thank you.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian and Julius for their input, to Matt Ladder for his technical expertise, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Blue Sky and X at Barrie360, on our website, Barrie360.com, and there's our daily Kickstart podcast available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.